chasing the easy life. We're chasing the easy life. We're chasing the easy life. We're chasing the sun tonight. We're chasing the easy life. Easy life.
What's up, guys? So today I'm gonna do something kind of different. What I'm going to do is actually go through a pitch deck that I built, but of course I redacted all the confidential information, and you'll see some of the stuff that's redacted through this. But it's a pitch deck that I built with this other guy who wasn't really too serious about presenting this to some investors that he supposedly had contacts with, but we built it based upon a business idea and model that is a good format and a good lesson to folks who are wondering how they can build something to pitch to investors. So I'm just going to go over this investment pitch deck at a high level to show some of you folks who may be wondering what should go into a pitch deck and how should you build one, in order to talk to investors and so forth. So a lot of stuff you see here will be redacted and blanked out and whatnot. So, but I think the overall premise still applies. So basically, here are some key items that you should have. Obviously, there's an introduction, an executive summary, which is an overview of all the pertinent information. In the other sections, which should contain more information, and then we'll go through each of these elements. So obviously, one of the key things that people want to know as an investor is, so who's the guy doing this, right? Who are the number of different people? And what are their qualifications? So a lot of times what they want to look for is that you have some subject matter experts in this field or whatever arena that you're dealing with, and they want to make sure that the people running the company that they're going to invest in know what they're doing. Basically, that's the key. And if you don't, you should recruit other team members that have the specialized skill sets. Here is just a list of executive summary, some of the key slides that you will see in the other parts of the presentation. So I'm just going to breeze through that and go into the company overview. So here, what you should do is basically outline what exactly is your company about. What is its mission, its vision, and its promise to its customers. And then this is at a very high level, and then as you start at the 30,000 feet level, you should zoom in and start to provide more and more details, and that's the key here. And the other thing I wanted to say too is, from a presentation standpoint, I think a lot of us have seen TED and TEDx presentations, or the Apple presentations and whatever. A lot of those presentations are made for a different audience. Right now, what you're trying to focus on is to be able to create a slide decks that you can deliver, but at the same time, people can digest the printed copy without you there. So a lot of pictures make for some cool presentations when you're actually delivering on stage, but not very practical from a readability standpoint and doing deep dives so that people can really understand what's going on. So here, the next step is to talk about the business needs. So why exactly are you starting this business? So what I would do here is basically provide a very high level market sizing exercise. You should already know this stuff, because you shouldn't be in the business if you don't see an opportunity from a financial standpoint, and also from a need standpoint, that you can actually serve a need and have a function. And so this is basically at a high level explaining why there's a market for your solution, whatever that may be. And then the next couple of slides should be outlining the market and basically talking about, who are your competitors, how are you different from them. and what drives those differences, and how you can use that to carve out a niche for yourself. So you want to make sure that you're demonstrating to the people that you know what you're doing, you understand the market, and you've been keeping tabs on your competitors. And then why you're different. So in this example, obviously, there's some proprietary information that makes makes us different. And then obviously you talk about why, and provide more details basically. At least for myself, I think I mentioned it in another video. That whether you've done something or not is really to the level of depth that you can talk about the subject. And so I like to, in an investor presentation, you want to tell the people that, hey, you've done this. You don't necessarily have to really open the hood and really dissect the nuts and bolts of every detail, even though you should know how to do it if needed. But at the same time, here you're just providing a little extra additional layer to say what goes into the hard work for the formulation and so forth, or whatever the the equivalent is in your industry, right? And then here from a from an operations perspective is how are you going to actually reach your various distribution channels, and what's their strategy. So in our example, we are talking about from a mass market solution perspective, how the packaging will differ from one place to another, and then also what are those channels where our product will be delivered through, and then what is the strategy, right? So we've outlined here some very concrete steps as to how to accomplish what we want to accomplish, which is create the product, segment the market, and only focus on the high level and high return segments. And then from a marketing standpoint, make sure that all of our marketing strategies, pricing, placement, promotion, and so forth are basically online and in sync, and so that there's no mixed messaging. That's very key to the success of a brand. And then, of course, from the other element is how are we going to launch some of our campaigns, and we outline some of those in the following slides. From a marketing perspective, the guy I was working with claims that he has a lot of insider connections and so forth. So we basically build our strategy around a viral strategy, which costs very little actual traditional marketing dollars. And we would spend a majority of our money on viral marketing from that perspective, and that's sort of where our assumptions are done in our financial modeling. And then obviously you need to develop a very good message that all of the people that you are enlisting to help with your marketing efforts can all more or less state the same message. Again, making sure that everything is in alignment, and how you are going to convey that information for your brand. Here, the brand messages for the solution. This is just some examples with concrete pictorials that were copied to show the types of feelings that the brand should evoke. And so that's, again, more for the investors to see and to understand where we want to align ourselves as a brand. And then from the brand message standpoint here, is our ability to do the three things here, which is build awareness, build the brand, and then obviously sell the product. And again, we are talking about the various layers of viral social media promotion, and some of the investors may not be as sophisticated, especially if they're from a different generation or in a different industry which doesn't utilize this type of marketing as much. So we're providing some examples here with regards to how we're going to accomplish that. We also did a quick model of where we're going to spend our marketing dollars through the various social media channels, and what we can expect from a from a KPI standpoint, where would be our returns and where we're going to measure. Then we get to the nuts and bolts again. Here is just an additional detailed layer in terms of what our product is about. And then of course you want to talk about your product roadmap, right? So once you take their money, what are you going to do with the product? How are you going to move this product forward? And so we build a roadmap to project what we want to do and accomplish over the next several years. And here we go into a very important point, which is the revenue model. I talked about in another video why all businesses should not go into it with the idea of just losing money, capturing market share, and hopefully forcing out other competitors or potential competitors and scaring them away. And we'll make back the money later or sell out and so forth. You should be a viable business from the beginning. So that's sort of some of the assumptions here, and why the revenue model is important is you want to start out by saying that you can make money and you will grow, and then what are the various assumptions that go into it. So here we looked at the various revenue model, and we go through and explain each of those key sections in this PowerPoint. Perhaps in another video, if folks are interested, I can go over the revenue model that I built. And so again, you go through some numbers with them and basically guide them in terms of how to interpret the numbers and what are the rationales behind each of these numbers. So here we're just projecting out up to year 5. I think in terms of accuracy, the accuracy decreases as the years are projected out further, simply because of the various unknowns, right? So it's perfectly valid to state that, and people will understand. And also you made various assumptions with regards to what cost would look like, what production and sales would look like based upon what you do know about the business today. All of that will change since a lot of times volume and so forth are very dependent and are interdependent on the amount of sales that you can do, so you can accomplish economies of scale and so forth, and your various strategy as well. So right now we're targeting a mass market, I think, in this presentation, but if we move into higher end market and so forth, these projections would change depending on our strategy. You want to highlight the various performance measures that you're looking at. So for myself, I like to really look at 2 types of performance measures. What I would label as diagnostic matrix and performance matrix. So a diagnostic, let's start with performance matrix. So performance matrix are stuff that most people are used to, which is, did you hit your goal? Diagnostic matrix, and it's called such, is it contains numbers which by themselves don't really drive towards anything, except that they are important to let you know what is going on and whether you're operating correctly or not. That may oftentimes affect the performance measures themselves, right? So, for example, if you have issues with free cash flow, but let's say your asset turnover is very low, that means you have a lot of stuff on the shelf that's not being converted back into cash. So obviously that affects your free cash flow. So that allows you to understand and fine tune and look into what the actual problems are. Same with day sales outstanding and so forth. Those are all drives towards free cash flow and income and such. So it allows you to understand that. And then with regards to maybe net income or whatnot, maybe your sales are kind of low, so your net income, you're operating at a loss. And why is that? Maybe the marketing strategy that we implemented is not happening. Maybe social media is not the right channel. You look at some diagnostic measures such as followers, subscribers, likes, upvotes, and so forth, and they're very low. So that allows you to fine-tune your marketing strategy. Things like that. So here is something important for investors. especially when you're asking them to look and invest. So they want to know how much your company is worth, let's say 5 or 6 years out, when usually people want to exit. And so this provides some projections. Here we did... what we did was economic value to revenue multiple, and we used Monster as sort of the gold standard, looking at how much they were valued at a specific point in time, and then we basically based our valuation in terms of the revenue multiples or multiples of revenues based upon what Monster got from their IPO, and so and what the valuations were at that point. So that's a method that we did to evaluate our company, but there are multiple ways to evaluate your company. This is just one of them. In this example, we feel like that was the most relevant. And oftentimes when I say we, it's mainly my brother and I that worked on this this revenue model and the business PowerPoint. The other person that we were in contact with didn't really contribute much to this, and I'll talk about that in another video in terms of assessing character and whatnot. But from a business perspective, this seemed like interesting topic to tackle. So I was love to learn about a new industry, so we did this and see where it went, even though it didn't really go the way we wanted it to, but it's a very good learning experience. I learned a lot through looking into the drink business. And then, of course, they want to look at what are your exit strategy. And so, you want to outline some ways that they would get their money back. And here we outlined 3 typical ones. And then, from a request perspective, they also want to know, okay, if they invest, besides money, what else should they contribute? And I think this is a good opportunity to be upfront about that and tell them, we want access to your network. We want you to contribute this and that outside of being a passive investor. And sometimes, being a passive investor is fine. But if they have huge connections or prior experience, why not tap into their knowledge and their expertise? So then you want to outline some next steps for what you want to do. These are some very high-level, typical next steps in terms of defining the term sheet, closing the financing, and then starting some of the major efforts if this is the only round of financing you need. Sometimes, let's say you need $1 million, and this investor will only fund 40% of that. You still need the other $600K. So in terms of next steps, you're not done yet in terms of getting in the financing. So this is just a really rough high-level next steps. And then what I usually like to do is include an appendix. That's any other supplemental information or more detailed reports and so forth. I would throw that into the appendix or attach it as separate files, such as the revenue model here. So anyway, I hope this overview in terms of building a pitch deck. This is just one way of building a pitch deck. This is the way I did it for this particular project. Doesn't necessarily mean this is the only way or the correct way. There are probably better approaches as well. So feel free to let me know what you think. I hope this provides some value, especially for folks who are completely at a loss in terms of how to start doing something of this nature and how to approach investors. I've had quite some experience doing that. From my internship days in working with angels groups and whatnot. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you find value in this, feel free to like and subscribe and check out my other videos. All right, peace out.